Welcome to the Henry Schein DentalVision Enterprise version 13 What's New tutorial. My name is Jill Shelson and I'm a senior software trainer for Henry Schein Specialty Products. And today we will be giving you an overview of the changes you will see in our 2013 update. The first change you're going to notice is the login screens and splash screens when you log in. We're going to start with the pre-registration changes. In pre-registration, for those offices using the TrueForm download, there's now a button to click to download your TrueForm forms. In here, you will type in your username and your password and click Get Patient Files. Also in pre-registration is an option to do a bulk delete. On the right-hand side, we'll click the bulk delete button, and there are 5 different ways to do a bulk delete. Delete based on the date that the patients were entered into pre-registration and enter your date range. A termination date set in the insurance profiles based on an insurance company, employer, or group number. And then click OK to remove those patients. There's also an option to combine patients. This is when you have duplicate patients entered in your system. An example would be Kim Hill and Kimberly Hill. To combine the patients, I click the Combine button. I select the patient on the left, and I'm going to move all that information to the patient on the right. When I click OK, it lets me know this is not reversible. Do I still want to proceed? And asks, do I want to delete the patient I'm getting rid of, the one I'm combining into the other one? If I say yes, the name disappears out of the system. If I say no, then the software holds that information of the combined patient and allows you to view the combined patients. I'm going to say no. To view combined patients, there's now an option checkbox at the bottom. I click the Display Combined Patients, and I see the Kim Hill that I combined into Kimberly. Also in pre-registration, there's additional information, insurance information that can be added to the pre-registration. If I highlight a name and click Edit, in the tab labeled Method of Payment Insurance, there is now options for group number, termination date, when the insurance was last verified, and names or initials of who verified it. This will transfer over to the Patient Information Center. Now we're going to move along to the Patient Information Center. When we open up the Patient Information Center, the first thing that you're going to notice is that there's 2 panels, one on either side of the Patient Info Center. On the left-hand side is the control panel that used to be the floaty box. The control panel now is docked on the left-hand side. However, there's a little push pin at the top where you can push the pin and hide the control panel. If you move your cursor over on top of it, it pops out, allowing you to select one of the options. If you move your cursor away, it disappears. If I want it fixed on the left-hand side, I can push the push pin again. You can also resize the width of the control panel. In the control panel, it's grouped in sections: clinical, radiography, transactions, and actions. These were the buttons in the control panel. It's grouped into the clinical. This is where we will view the electronic health record, narratives, patient document center, implant tracking, clinical vision, and EndoChart. If I want to hide this section, I can click the arrows at the top next to the header, and it hides those options for me. If I want to access those options again, I can click it again, and it opens it up. For those offices with a digital x-ray bridge, you will see the radiography section. If you do not have a digital x-ray bridge, you will not see this section. The transactions is all the charges, payments, adjustments that go to the patient's ledger. In the control panel previously, there was a button labeled Charge to post new charges. Now it's labeled Billing. On the right-hand side, we will have a medical history alert panel. The top section is the significant medical alerts that we had before. Instead of double-clicking to select from a list, we now click the Open button. In this list, we may have allergies. Allergies now have a new section in this panel and therefore need to be moved out of the significant medical history into the allergy section. We have an option to do this by highlighting the allergy in here and clicking the button Allergy to notate that this item is an allergy and it needs to be moved to the allergy section. This is asking, do I want to continue? And it updates all the patients who have this attached to them. That allergy no longer appears in the significant medical history. You'll also notice that the last time the medical history was updated is now in the significant medical history section here, as opposed to in the general tab. To attach an allergy to a patient, we click the New button. It adds a new line, and we click the drop down to select from a list. If we find that we need an allergy that's not in the list, then we use the Lookup button to go to the master list of allergies. We click Add to create a new allergy in the list. We type in the name and the description and click OK. Once we've added our allergy to the master list, we close the list. Before we can attach it to a patient, we click the Refresh button. Now we can click New and use the drop down and find that soy allergy in our list. If we want to delete an allergy off of a patient, we highlight it and use the Delete button. The next section is the alerts. Here we see the alert symbols, plus this is also where we mark the pre-medication alert and the latex allergy. The next section is the quick notes, where we can free type patient notes, or we can use Open to pick from a list. The last section here is the patient photo. We now have an Acquire button to capture an image. This screen looks a little different. The picture is to acquire an image from a camera. File is if you have an image saved on your computer. The paste is to copy and paste from a clipboard. And Scan is to scan an image in. Clear clears the image that we have attached here. To save the image, we click OK. If we just want to close, we click Cancel Out. Also, you're going to notice in the General tab that there's a few things that have been reorganized, including the Inactivate, Allow Scheduling, and Access options. Instead of being in the lower right corner, now they're moved right above the account summary. Also, the patient account number allows for up to 15 characters. In the Insurance tab, you're going to notice on the tab now, in parentheses, is a number. This is the number of insurances that are attached to the patient. Also in the Insurance section, we now have the patient's date of birth and age appearing in here. In the Appointment section, under the Canceled Rescheduled Appointments, if a patient has canceled an appointment, we now have a new option to go in and reschedule a canceled appointment. You highlight the canceled appointment, right-click, and choose the reschedule. When you choose reschedule, it takes you to the appointment book in the reschedule process. You continue on just like you would normally reschedule an appointment. Find the date and time, put in any notes, and click Finish. Your canceled appointment is now rescheduled. The Clinical tab has now been renamed to Treatment Plans. In the Ledger tab, you may also notice a new button called the Family Ledger. If you click on the Family Ledger, it's going to show all patients linked with that same guarantor with the family with their transaction detail from the ledgers. In here at the bottom, we can collapse information or expand all information. And here I see Jane and Kevin's information, and I also have an option to print. In the Notes section, you're going to notice that the tabs along the left-hand side, all the options to add, delete, edit, are now at the top instead of being at the bottom of the screen. and anywhere there was an add button now says new. Medical prescriptions. When we're viewing medical prescriptions that have been written, we can now also view how many times we mark them to renew. A couple other things in the Patient Information Center is track code. In the other option over here under Actions is an option for code check. Code check allows you to view codes and when the last time this patient has had that procedure posted to their ledger. This would need to be set up in the fee schedule and selected for each code that you would like to track in the Patient Information Center. Now we're going to move along to the Document Center. On the left-hand side, I'm going to click Documents. You're going to notice that all the options are now across the top. And again, where there was an add is now a new. And before where we had the capture is now acquire. In here, when you have images attached to a patient, there's a new option to drag and drop images from one folder to another. In Preferences, we now have option to create thumbnails and also have file formats for PNG. There's also an option for a default sort, to sort the images based on name or by date. In the Categories tab, there's an option to apply all folders to all existing patients. And at the bottom is the option to delete empty categories. Empty categories is folders that may be attached to patients but do not have any images inside of them. We can highlight an empty category from the bottom and click delete. That folder will be deleted from all patients. Next, we're going to move on to posting. There's a new option to print a quick statement for a patient while posting charges. I'm going to go in and enter in an extraction. When I save the procedure and move over to the billing summary screen, at the bottom is an option for a quick statement. This will allow you to generate a statement to send to the patient with the amount owed. I'm just going to turn off everything else so you can see the statement and click OK. This option is just the same as clicking the Print View and Quick Statement from the Patient Information Center. It opens up your statement options to make any changes as necessary before clicking OK. Once we click OK, we will then see the statement. If it was set to log to the patient, it will record that this is the last time a statement's been generated. Since we're looking at the statements, one of the new features is in the UO and insurance estimated columns. Instead of having the amounts for the patient and insurance on every single line, we have just totals at the bottom for what the patient owes and what the insurance estimated is. It's not broken down by procedure code anymore. Another posting option is when posting family payments. So let's go into the payments and click Family Pay. When we select Family Pay, we now have an option to manually apply payments to each family member. In here, we enter the total amount of the payment, and when we tab out, it gives us a yellow box next to each patient. In here, we can select or enter in how much we would like to apply to each family member. If there's an amount that hasn't been applied, then it will show up here in the remaining to post. That tells me that I need to change the amounts to equal the total amount of payment. Once the full amount of the payment has been applied, the remaining will say 0, and I can save the payment. Posting family pays by manual allocation needs to be turned on in Preferences. There's also a preference setting to track bulk EFT payments, similar to tracking bulk check payments. For those of you using the Electronic Health Record, or EHR, there's quite a few changes in there. Let's take a look at those briefly. When I open EHR, you're going to notice that you see the medical history and alert panel on the right-hand side, similar to the Patient Information Center. It works the same way. You can resize the width. You can also choose to pin and unpin just like the control panel, and have it auto hide or have it docked on the side. In EHR, starting with the case information, when we create a new case, the chief complaint and comments have been switched, so it's now comments first and chief complaint. There's also been added a section for history of present illness. When we enter that in and save that information, you're going to see two different tabs here, one for chief complaint and one for HPI. The tabs now turn purple to let you know there's information inside of it. There's also new sections in the subjective and objective sections. These are the orthognathic, TMJ questionnaires, past medical history, past social history, past family history, and review of systems. Also, another change in the vital signs is that the software now calculates BMI when you enter the height and weight in for a patient. Now let's look up into the top right section under Plan. In the plan, when we click the selector, you're going to notice that the teeth that the patient does not have still appear here, but they're shaded gray and lighter in color. Those designate the teeth the patient does not have in their mouth. Also, you're going to notice some teeth selected in red. The ones marked with the red dot are the teeth that are already associated with this case. If I click a new tooth, it will appear in green. Also, if I have not entered in a diagnosis or a treatment plan yet, you will also see the words here, no diagnosis entered and no treatment plan entered. In the treatment summary section, we now have an option to sync rows. If there's multiple teeth, I can highlight the teeth that applies to and click sync rows so it applies those teeth to all the row items here with the treatment summary. Also, in the anesthesia templates, we now have the option to sort or change the order of the anesthesia in here. This will affect the grid ad. In the canal sections, all of the information in here will now lock with the EHR except the actual length. That remains open for patients for another visit to go in and enter that information when they return. Also, when we edit canal information, there's a new option for calcification. There's also changes been made to the narratives. Let's go ahead and open up a narrative. In the EHR case field, there's new merge fields to merge information from EHR, including the allergies, and the new sections in the subjective and objective, including the orthognathic and TMJ exams, and the past medical, social, and family history and review of systems. There's also a new option to merge the provider or doctor's signature, either a digital or electronic signature, into a narrative. The digital or electronic signatures would be set up in the provider table. The EHR narrative fields, the options to create new folders, new root folders, and new subfolders, and sorting the order now appears differently here. Another new feature in the narrative is to create checkboxes. I'm just going to make this a little bigger so you can see it. Up here at the top under Insert is a checkbox option. You click the checkbox and then you can create an option for something like a yes, no. There's also an option to review the narratives, mark them reviewed, and lock them inside the narratives before closing. Going back to the EHR, in the reports, there's new options to include all the information from EHR to print out directly from EHR. In the reports, we can create a report, give it a name, and select what sections we would like to include in that report. There's also a new option in here whether we want each section to print on a new page, or if we uncheck this, it just puts one section right after another in continuous form. Now moving along, we're going to move to the insurance changes. I'm going to close the EHR and I'm going to close the Patient Information Center. I'm going to go up to my profile table and pick an insurance profile and click the edit. There's just a few changes in here. Starting with the benefits and limits, there's a new section for age and time limitations. In here we can enter codes and put if there's age limitations. Like for this example, it's only payable for ages 5 through 12. Or in this example, they only cover it once every 60 months. It's a frequency limitation. Also in the benefits and limits, under the primary-secondary coordination, is a new option to charge out the maximum. This only applies when plans are PPO or managed care or DMO, but this would charge the higher of the amount of the contracted rates. And last, under the claims, the provider forms, there is a new ADA red form. Next, we're going to move along to the appointment book. When I open up the appointment book, it opens to the current time it is, and the time now appears in a purple and a bold color. I'm just going to move up a little bit to my appointment. If I right-click on an existing appointment, you're going to notice some changes in here, including we've added a direct link to progress notes and the digital x-ray program if you have one bridged. Also, the confirmation status now has a sub-menu where you click confirmation status and then move over to select which status. If I right-click and change an appointment, there's a new option to cancel the appointment from within the Edit Appointment window. I'm going to go ahead and cancel this appointment. I also want to explain that if we have any comments in the appointment when we cancel an appointment, if we add the patient to the call list, those comments now transfer over to the call list. I'm going to click OK to cancel this appointment. Now if I look up in the call list and I edit Kevin's information, I will then see the copay information comments that I had on the appointment. When I make a new appointment for Kevin, those comments will then transfer to the new appointment. Let's try that. I want to remove Kevin from the call list, and I'm going to make the appointment for that extraction number 20, which is on the call list. And here are the comments that transferred over. Also in the appointment book at the top here is a hide patient name. This is for HIPAA privacy in operatories, where it will hide the patient's name, so if a patient sees the schedule, you won't see any names here. If you have the pop-up comments turned on in preferences, though, you will see the patient's name as the very first thing in the comments. This is workstation specific. You can just toggle it on and off as needed. There's also a new option to hide empty chairs. If we look at the schedule, chairs 4 and 5 are blocked out. If I click the hide empty chairs, I can hide chairs that have only out blocks or out and in blocks, and I won't see them on my schedule. Let's try that. If I want to go back and turn them on, I can go back to the hide empty chairs and say do not hide any chairs and click OK, and they will reappear. This button allows the user to change this on this workstation just for their view only. If we go into the tools and open up the configurations, we can also change the settings as a default. So I'm going to edit the configurations, and here are the options. This means this is always the way we want it when we open this configuration. And last in the appointment book is when we're printing a routing slip, there's a new option to include inactive family members. We check this box to include those patients and click OK. Next is the in-office status screen. We're going to notice some changes in here, including whatever patient is highlighted here, their information no longer appears at the top of the window, but it appears at the bottom. At the bottom, we will see the medical history and the allergies now, our new section from the panel, and any quick notes that we have, including the alerts. At the top, there's a new option to sort this list based on appointment time, provider, last name, and appointment status. You can set the default for this in preferences. In the lower right-hand corner, there's a new option to filter based on status. We click the button and we select which status to filter by, and then click OK. If we want to remove the filter, we just uncheck the remove filter option. And the last option in here is the code check. This is the same as what we saw from the Patient Information Center. If I want to see when the last time the patient has had these procedures done based on the ones that have been set up in the fee schedule, I click the code check and it lists the codes that have been marked, and then we will see the last time the patient has had that procedure done. And click OK to close the window. Next is the referrer table. In the referrer table, we can now take a referrer and move them over to the co-therapist list, simply by highlighting the name and click Add to Co-Therapist. You can also select multiple names by holding your Control key and selecting multiple names and then clicking Add to Co-Therapist. Now if we open up the co-therapist table, those names will appear. Another option is to highlight multiple referrals in here and delete them. If a referrer is attached to a patient, it will not allow you to delete them. If I highlight a referral and go into the edit screen, one of the new options is attaching a company or practice to each location the doctor works for. This allows users to put in doctors that work for different companies on different days. An example would be Dr. Jones works for Green and Klooster on Mondays and Tuesdays, and then works for Clemens and Cunningham on Wednesdays and Thursdays. This will also separate the information on the reporting. So let's look at the referral reports. In the lower right-hand corner is the new option to group the reports by company or practice, by specialty, or do not group. Next, we're going to look at the reports. Under the report menu option is a new report for procedure type and frequency. In here, we attach procedure codes that applies to any one of these groups, and this will pull up a report that tells us how many of those procedures we have done. For example, in here I enter in our extraction codes and paste. There may be more than one, so I just click add again, find the next code, and paste. I repeat the process for each group. Then I set my date range over here. Any other filters I'd like based on location markers, patient types, and click OK. This is what the report looks like. So for each section, it'll list it here, number of teeth removed, 3. I did not have any implants placed during that time frame, so I don't see that section even listed. Next is under the statements. When I go to statements and print, there's a new option at the very bottom for a print preview. This allows you to view what statements are going to be generated when you click OK without actually clicking OK. When you click preview, you will see the patient's statements, but it does not record in their account that a statement has been generated. You must close the preview and come back and click OK to generate the statements. The next section is the implant center. When we attach implants to a patient, there's a couple changes that have been made. I'm going to open Kevin Test back up and open up the implant tracking. When we add an implant case, there's now an option to select the teeth that we're working on for that case. If there's more than one, you just click on the teeth, and when you're done, click OK. Another new option in the implant center is when we're attaching the implants to the patient. I highlight the stage and I click items, and I add an item to a patient. There's now an option to apply an item to all teeth that were selected. So if we place the same implant for both teeth, then I can click apply to all after I attach the implant to the first tooth. There's also a section now to attach the abutment and drill that was used, and the readings. There have been additions and changes to the readings that we can notate. Next, we're going to look at some preference setting changes. just close out of here. Under Utilities and Preferences, one of the changes is in the Program tab. Instead of it saying user number, it is now workstation number. You will also see that down in the lower right-hand corner next to the date and time, next to level. It now says workstation number. In the Print Defaults tab, we now have an option for the quick statements. This is to always have the quick statements selected in the billing summary screen if there's a patient balance. Also down here, we have an option to change the font size for progress notes when we print the progress notes. The options to do manual payments for family pay is in the Operation tab. If I scroll down to the payment section, allow manual entry of family payments. This is where you turn that on. And up at the top of that section is to track detail on bulk EFT payments. We also do have a new option for the software to process 835 electronic EOB files. We are also able to do e-prescriptions in our new version 13. E-prescribe is a purchase piece where you would need to sign up and get with your sales representative. Also in the time clock, there's a new option in the work types to allow or not allow overtime per work type. Under our Help menu option, there's a new option here to go right to our online enhancement website to post any kind of requests or changes that you'd like to see in the software. Also under this menu option is the What's New document. This is a brief tutorial of all the changes that are being made in the version 13, but for detailed explanations and more information, you would want to go under the Help and open up the What's New document and read about these changes. Now I have a couple of questions from patients. Now I've received a question from a viewer. When will the version 13 be released? The version 13 is scheduled to be released in August. However, if you're interested in receiving it as soon as possible, you can apply for what we call the Early Adopter Program on our website. Go to www.dentalvisionenterprise.com/2013 and there's a link to the Early Adopter Program. Now this concludes our session in the What's New for 2013 tutorial. Thank you for joining us, and again, my name is Jill Shelson, and I'm a Senior Specialty Trainer for Henry Schein. If your office would like to purchase additional phone or web or on-site training, you may contact myself at 813-508-7318 or by email at jills.hsps@gmail.com to inquire. You can also contact your sales representative for a quote, but remember to request Jill as your trainer. Thank you and goodbye.